The message lit up his phone and went dark again in the reflection of the cafe window, a single sentence ending a week of quiet hope, and as he lowered the screen his eyes lifted to the small table across the room where a young mother sat trembling, trying to tear a sandwich into pieces while tears slid down her face and a child waited, hungry and confused, for a miracle that did not seem to be coming. If you believe that kindness still matters and that second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to KNH Stories, because stories like this live and breathe on people who still believe in goodness. He had come early, as he always did, wearing the same careful optimism he had learned to put on after too many quiet evenings alone. The cafe smelled of coffee and toasted bread, and the low murmur of conversations created a gentle background hum that made loneliness feel almost bearable. When the cancellation arrived, it landed softly but carried weight, reminding him of the invisible wall that had followed him for years, the one built from missed chances, bad timing, and the unspoken fear of hoping too much. He sat there anyway, hands wrapped around a cooling cup, telling himself that staying a few minutes longer would hurt less than going straight home. That was when the scene at the next table pulled him out of his own disappointment and into something heavier, something real. The mother looked exhausted in the way only someone who had been strong for too long could look. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes red, and her hands shook as she tried to manage the simple task of feeding her child. The little girl sat quietly on her lap, clutching a worn toy, taking small bites as if she understood that food was precious today. The man noticed the plate between them, the sandwich uneven and plain, and the way the mother kept glancing at it as though dividing it fairly was an impossible puzzle. There was no dramatic scene, no raised voices or pleading gestures, just a quiet struggle unfolding in the open, raw and unguarded. He tried to look away, telling himself that everyone carried invisible burdens and that his presence would not change theirs. But something inside him resisted the comfort of indifference. He remembered his own childhood, the nights his mother pretended she was not hungry, the way love often showed itself in silence and sacrifice. The memory tightened his chest and softened his resolve. The cafe, once a place of waiting and mild disappointment, now felt like a crossroads where ignoring pain would be easier but noticing it might matter more. As minutes passed, he watched the mother wipe her face with the back of her hand, breathing deeply as if steadying herself against a wave. The child leaned into her, trusting without understanding, and that trust seemed to break something open in him. He realized that while his evening plans had fallen apart, he was still sitting in warmth with food and options, and that this small imbalance of fortune carried responsibility whether he liked it or not. The idea scared him, not because it was hard, but because it asked him to step outside the careful boundaries he had built around his heart. He stood slowly, the movement feeling heavier than it should have, and approached the counter with a decision that felt both simple and enormous. The sounds of the cafe faded into a blur as he placed an order that was more than he needed, more than he had planned, telling himself that regret would be easier to live with than doing nothing. When he returned to his table, he waited, giving the moment space, knowing that dignity mattered as much as help. He did not want to be a rescuer in a story, just a human responding to another human. The change came quietly. The food arrived, and with it, a subtle shift in the room's energy. The mother noticed, confusion crossing her face before relief softened it. The child's eyes lit up in a way that was unmistakable, a pure expression of joy that needed no explanation. The man returned to his seat, heart pounding, unsure if what he had done was enough or appropriate, but certain that it was honest. He felt lighter, as though a knot he did not know he carried had loosened. Time moved differently after that. The cafe's noise returned, but it no longer pressed in on him. He saw the mother straighten a little, her breathing easing, the weight of the moment lifting just enough to let hope Indiana. In that quiet shared space, nothing more needed to happen. There were no speeches, no dramatic turns, just the gentle realization that one small act could ripple outward, touching lives in ways that might never be fully seen. As the evening wore on, he finished his coffee and prepared to leave, his cancelled date no longer the center of his thoughts. He felt a strange gratitude for the interruption to his plans, for the way disappointment had opened a door instead of closing one. Walking out into the cool air, he understood that connection did not always arrive wrapped in romance or expectation. Sometimes it appeared as a moment of shared humanity, brief and imperfect, yet powerful enough to change the shape of a night and the direction of a heart. The days that followed carried that moment with him. He found himself more present, more willing to notice the quiet struggles around him and his own capacity to respond. The loneliness that once felt like a permanent condition softened into something else, something hopeful. He realized that while he could not control who showed up for him, he could choose how he showed up for the world, and that choice gave his life a meaning that no cancelled plan could take away. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to KNH Stories, because every engagement helps keep these moments of humanity alive. And before the ending, we have a special request for you. Comment below with one small act of kindness you have witnessed or hope to offer, because your words might inspire someone else who needs it today. He never learned the full story of the mother and child, and perhaps that was as it should be. What mattered was the reminder that life often meets us in ordinary places, asking quiet questions about who we choose to be when no one is watching.